just move on. So the end result of being able to differentiate between limiting belief expectations and core needs expectations is that you're going to have a much more peaceful, honest, and open relationship. One where you feel like you are in deep alignment with yourself, and that will reflect in your relationships, both in your relationship if you're, intimate with someone, but in all of your relationships, whether it be in the workplace or with your parents or with your siblings or with your friends. So this is not, I'm really not talking just about, intimate relationships and sexuality here. This is something that's going to affect your whole life when you start to differentiate between these different kinds of expectations. Now, of course, how does all of this relate to sexuality? So most people go into sexual encounters with some sort of an expectation. Yeah. And commonly, one of the common expectations is that when you begin a sexual encounter, you're either going to orgasm or ejaculate. Now, although this is very common, it's not the way that you want to go into a sexual encounter, because it's not going to lead to deep intimacy. Now, of course, a lot of people are afraid of deep intimacy, so it makes it easier for them to get through sexual encounters when they have an expectation. But this expectation creates pressure, and it takes us further away from experiencing deep intimacy and pleasure. Because what happens is when you go into a sexual encounter and you're expecting some sort of end result, that's essentially what you're focused on. You're focused on achieving something at the end of that encounter, as opposed to being completely present in the sexual encounter and feeling all the small sensations that you can feel in your body, in your spirit, in your soul, as you're having that sexual encounter. And when you're able to be very, very present with sexual encounters, you're actually opening up to a much larger range of pleasure and of intimacy. So this is something that that I help teach women and couples, is how to open yourself up to these different sensations that you can potentially experience. This orgasmic pleasure that you can experience not just at the end of a sexual encounter, but throughout the sexual encounter from beginning to end, and in general through life. So when you open yourself up to, essentially detaching yourself from any end result, from expectations in general, you're opening yourself up to experience things more deeply. You're going to experience more joy. You'll experience perhaps more sadness. You'll be experiencing, you're opening yourself up to experiencing more extreme emotions, more extreme sensations. And of course, you're making yourself more vulnerable. So it's really creating a willingness and a full-on yes to experiencing the full gamut of emotions and sensations that we can potentially experience. Most people go through life really fearful of experiencing the full gamut of emotions. So they shut themselves down, they create barriers, they create expectations, which they feel protects them. But what essentially happens is they're cutting themselves off from some of the most beautiful and deep parts of living a human life. So I want to invite you to really, really try to tap into all of these small sensations the next time that you make love, whether it be to yourself or to your partner, but to really try to tap into all of these different sensations that that you can be open to. So when you touch yourself or when somebody touches you, it's really, really focusing on that touch. Really, really going deep and focusing and seeing what comes up for you. Now, a way to be able to help you focus on that touch is through deep, deep breathing. Okay, so taking deep inhalations, long exhalations, that's going to help you stay present and get out of this mindset of expectation of when am I going to orgasm, or let's, pick up the pace so that I can reach orgasm, as opposed to doing the opposite, which is slowing down the pace, postponing orgasm, so that you can actually experience more pleasure and bliss when you're actually in the act. And this creates deeper intimacy. Yeah. So when we take away the pressure of the outcome, we're able to really, really dive deeper into the intimacy and the pleasure. So you want to release your expectations, of course, the ones that are limiting belief expectations, like reaching ejaculation or orgasm, in order to be present in the moment and feel every little sensation in your body. Now, in deep intimacy, there are also core needs expectations, and these are expectations which are important that you identify and communicate to your partner. So it is important to have boundaries. This does not mean that, in order to have deep intimacy, that you should have no boundaries. Actually, the opposite is true. In order to have deep intimacy, you need to know yourself. You need to know what your boundaries are. You need to know what's going to make you feel safe in this relationship, sexually and in general. And that way you'll be able to open up more. You'll be able to open up your heart, which is a very important part, of course, of experiencing deep, deep intimacy. So I invite you to really examine this, to really try to create an awareness around what are your limiting beliefs? Where do they come from? Oftentimes they're going to come from your childhood. And it's really trying to identify those beliefs, if they're serving you or not. Is this something that is keeping you safe and secure? Or is this something which is really just wreaking havoc in your personal life and in your relationships? And that's going to be a good indicator as to whether or not it's a core need or a limiting belief. Core needs are things that you really, really need in order to feel loved, in order to feel safe, in order to feel secure. Okay? So these are the core needs. So it's really working on learning to differentiate between those two and learning to try to overcome some of these limiting beliefs that you may have. And you can do that through deep emotional alchemy work, which is something, of course, that I do in one-on-one sessions. So I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on Divine Couples. If you would like more information about us, you can visit us on our website at www.divine-couples.com. You can also visit on our Instagram page, social media, which is divine.couples. Thanks again for being with us on Divine Couples. I am your host, Naomi Slater.
Join us next time to continue your journey in exploring the depths of your life force energy. Until then, this has been your host, Naomi Slater. If you have any more questions on this subject, feel free to reach out. Follow her on Instagram at divine.couples. And to see all of her offerings, visit her website at theworldwideweb.divine-couples.com.